Hi, and welcome to Haunted in New England. Here we are in lovely, historic Lynn, Massachusetts. This is where I actually began my paranormal journey with seeing my first apparitions at Pine Grove Cemetery. Today we are at the historical Stone Cottage, what's left of the Daisy Cottage in the High Rock Tower in Lynn, Mass. Dave, if you want to take a look around, Dave is my cameraman for today. He's giving you a little preview of what we're looking at. And some of the stuff that you're looking at right now, this is all in Lynn. This is totally free to go and look at. It's a beautiful place. There's a lot of history that has to do with Lynn, Mass. Today I have some special guests with me. I have Doug the Anvil, who happens to be a UFC or MMA fighter. I also have Katrina, one of the board members for the Friends of High Rock Reservation. This place holds a very special place in my heart. As a kid, I used to come up here and hang out with my buddies on a regular basis. The history of this place and some of the stuff that goes on here, some of the paranormal that goes on here, everything from a shadow man that's seen in the windows watching you at some point, to noises heard, different explanations. So I want to dive into a little bit of the history with this. I'm going to bring Doug on and have him come on and talk about a little bit about the history that has to do with Stone Cottage, Daisy Cottage, and the High Rock Tower. And then we'll bring one of the board members, Katrina, on with us to talk about some of the other stuff that's going on. Doug? Doug is going to come in here and talk to you a little bit about the history of this. And like I said, welcome to Haunted in New England. I'm your host, Eric Perry, and please welcome Doug the Anvil.
Thank you for having me.
Glad to have you aboard. Now tell us a little bit about your organization.
Well, we're a preservation group that is trying to save Stone Cottage and just bring back the entire history of the area so kids have a place to come and learn. Stone Cottage was built in about 1820, and unfortunately it's fallen into hard times. So at this point, just to save it, we're looking at about a $1 to $1.5 million project, and basically we're just trying to raise funds to bring back the history.
Now, what made you fall in love with this place and getting involved with it?
I grew up around the corner. I've lived in this neighborhood for 16 years, and our former president, Gus Blitz, Gus basically brought me in. He brought a lot of us in. He was a World War II veteran, a former POW, and he walked around this neighborhood bringing everybody in. So I joined the group when I was probably about 13 with my mom, and I've been with him ever since. So unfortunately, a few years ago, we lost Gus.
Rest his soul.
Yes, it's tragic, but we all know he's still with us. And we got the group back together. I was lucky enough that everybody felt that I was the man to run it, and now it's just time to do it.
Now tell us a little bit about yourself. I like the name Anvil. It's one of my actual favorite music bands from the 80s also. Yeah. How did you get the nickname Anvil?
I played AAA semi-pro football with the Boston Bandits, and I used to have a goatee that stretched down to here. And my first practice, I came in, cleaned the guy's clock, and my helmet pops off, and I was standing over him, and somebody made the joke, "You look like Jim the Anvil Neidhart right now."
Well, that actually rocks, because that's one of my favorite wrestlers.
So it stuck. I've had it for years, and then I got into mixed martial arts, and I was at this small gym. I connected with a shot. Somebody actually joked around and said, "It's like getting hit by an anvil." And I said, "What do you mean by that?" He's like, "It's the hardest thing I've ever felt." He's like, and I broke my foot tripping over an anvil in one of my shops. So I got it in 2 different forms, and basically everybody that knows me calls me Anvil. When you're 6'6", about 350.
Now, were you an MMA fighter or UFC fighter?
MMA. UFC is one of the promotions that are out there, but I do it locally. Injuries have sidelined me a little bit. I help train some of my friends, which I'm lucky enough that one of them is about to make his amateur debut in a couple weeks.
Can you say his name?
His name's Anthony Sandman Sills. He's a 36-year-old veteran. He served at Fort Hood with the U.S. Army, and now he moved up here and wants to get back into fighting. And it's time.
Haunted in New England supports all military troops that are serving overseas or at home. Thank you for your service.
Thank you.
Will you give us some of the history of the tower and the cottage, and some of the paranormal history that you've been hearing about?
Definitely. Well, I've got a lot of good information leveled out here, because the Hutchinson family is originally from Milford, New Hampshire, but they came down here. They were a family of traveling singers, and actually when you travel around the country, you see like Hutchinson, Minnesota, things like that. It was actually named after the Hutchinson family, because different members would move away, but this is where they built their first houses. There used to be more than one. We had the Stone Cottage, Daisy Cottage, and there was a third cottage, which unfortunately it collapsed before people started writing down the names.
Okay.
We still have the back wall left from Daisy.
Do you know any of the ancestors that lived in that third cottage? You don't have a name for it.
No, it was just shared by the brothers, and they actually, they're the ones that moved away. And from what people know, they actually traveled with Frederick Douglass, which we do hold a Frederick Douglass night here on July 3rd. And they traveled to England and Ireland. They traveled with Susan B. Anthony. So this is where they all started. Everybody came through Lynn. John Hutchinson owned Stone Cottage. Judson Hutchinson had lived in Daisy Cottage, and unfortunately, in 1859, he committed suicide by hanging in the basement. And people, ever since the building fell, say that they actually see a man standing there. Because all that's left is the back wall of Daisy, which would have been the basement.
Okay, now, there was a hanging here, supposedly, that happened on the property. Do you have history of that in the records at all?
We have not been able to find anything. I have, tried to dig up information, and they believe it was a Confederate soldier who came through here to try to spy, and he was caught and executed on the property. Because back before they built the tower that we have now, there was a wooden tower, but at the end of the Civil War, it got burnt down. And when John Hutchinson gave the area to the city, that was part of the deal that they had to rebuild it in 1904. This tower was finished. And from there, we have this beautiful structure. But people say that they've seen people walking this property. There was a clairvoyant that actually lived at the bottom of the hill. Her name was Moll Pritchard. And she was actually killed by townfolk after she got something wrong. After years of being right and everybody loving her, she gets one thing wrong.
Do you believe that it was they believed that she was some kind of witchcraft?
They could have believed that it was witchcraft, especially for the time that it was. But unfortunately, she was killed and dumped in the streets, and they believe that the streets go all over in this direction. And she could have been dumped in any part of this area, because due to development, we don't know where the original streets were. But she was dumped over here, and her body was moved to Westland Cemetery, and she's buried over there in the old cemetery at this point.
Okay. Now, what's your thoughts on the paranormal that you're hearing? Now, you've had your own paranormal experiences.
Yes.
What are your thoughts on the paranormal here?
Well, I mean, just sitting here, you can actually feel like there's somebody watching you. And from time to time, even the first time that I met you, I was here with the Vice President Lisa, and at different points, it looked like a man was watching us from the top window. And when you look back, he's gone, and then reappears from time to time. And this building's locked and secured. There's nobody in here. So we know it has to be something in there.
Right. Now, this building is secured by the Lynn Police Department. No one can enter this building whatsoever. There is no way. It has fence around it, bolts on the doors. All first floor windows are completely covered by plywood. I'll tell you that much. So if you try to break into places, and I don't condone it, don't try to trespass into these places, these historical places that you have you don't even need to be in them unless you really get permission from working with Doug and his group. We also have Katerina from the Friends of High Rock.
Yeah, she's with the Friends of High Rock.
She's from the Friends of High Rock.
She's actually our historical liaison. She works with the historical commission as well.
Hello. How are you?
Doing good. Could you tell us a little more information about the history of this?
It's quite an amazing place. It's the promontory and the geography of this hillside alone is a promontory summit inland that overlooks Massachusetts Bay, and it was a symbolic point for 90,000 workforce strong sense that the hillside should remain free and open to the public. And when they have deeded it to the city in 1904, in the deed they requested to call the park Hutchinson High Rock Park. They requested the city to erect a tower. There was a tower before it had burned, but the city erected the current tower, and also when they requested,
Do you know when the first tower burnt down?
So from what we have in our information, it just says at the end of the Civil War.
right,
It doesn't give an exact date.
it was burned by vandals in celebration of the victory of the Civil War.
So this place has a lot of history that has to do with the Native Americans, Civil War, and pretty much the birth of this city.
Yeah, because even when the cottages were built, they chiseled the stone right from the rock face, and were able to build the cottage from that.
So the stone we see on the cottage right now, Dave, if you look at the cottage, is actually made from the rocks underneath the tower.
Yep, they chiseled that away and built them from in there. And
You can see the similar colors.
And now, what's your thoughts on hearing different things on the paranormal that go on here as of late?
Well, I don't know if Doug mentioned this, but the spiritualist movement began when angels were spotted in the cottage. I believe this is I believe this site attracts, there's a purity to this hilltop. Many have come here to voice and question discussions of the day. Actually, Hutchinson wanted this place to be an institution of thought, and where people would come and raise the greatest discussions of the day. And I think the spirit, the movement, the history, and even the actions of the people today that bring people together to the park, I think it's a very pure and symbolic. There's a unity. I think there's a magnetic force that connects. It's the spirit of all.
Do you believe that there is any witchcraft with this?
I don't believe there's witchcraft with this. And you know, Salem is our neighboring city, and I believe that the pure souls of Lynn were misconceived in the witch trials. And
Right, I just did some research on some of the history of the witchcraft here in Lynn.
Yeah.
There was actually quite a few that were actually noted witchcraft that were hung here in Lynn for witchcraft. Nothing about the tower area, but pretty much in the town, the city itself.
Neighboring, there's an old residential neighborhood off of Lewis and Queen Street, and there were fortune tellers, and but witchcraft as it wasn't as
Prominent?
prominent. Well, many of the witches in the Salem witch trials were from Lynn. But the idea behind the witchcraft, I believe, was misunderstood. I believe they were in tune with nature. Here in Lynn we have the woods, we have the natural hillsides, we have the ocean, which clears the mind. I believe that people in Lynn were in tune with the earth and were misunderstood. It was an innocent form of spirit, not what is thought of in the Salem witch trials as an attack on others.
I want to thank you for coming in.
Thank you.
Thank you. All right, now Doug. We're working on an event for here,
Yes.
a possible event called Sin City Paranormal Expo. You and your team jumped on it right off the bat. Oh yeah.
Oh, we're really
whenever
excited.
you needed help, I was. Central New Hampshire Paranormal has jumped right in, right off the bat to help out with this event coming up. We're working on it for May 12th, if I remember right. 2014. We're still working on the permits and stuff like that on it. Now, your organization, Friends of High Rock Reservation,
Yes.
How many members do you have currently?
Right now we have a 10 board member group, and then people from all over the neighborhood that come and give us a hand. So we could have maybe about 100 people all together, and that includes the neighbors that come in hand. But our board sits at 10.
Excellent. Okay. Now, what are some of the members that you have on the board?
Well, currently is I have it all listed right here. We have our treasurer, who is Donna Mason. We have our vice president, who is Lisa Conley. We have Cleo Hereford, who is our educational liaison. Rita Hereford and Cheryl Judge are both the community liaisons. Amanda Judge and Bill Conley are logistics coordinators to handle everything. So just to run all this stuff, it takes a lot.
It takes a lot, just like paranormal teams out there. The team that I work with, Central New Hampshire, and Dave works with, we both have a lot, and my co-founder, also Sandra Bartlett, we have a lot that we have to do that comes to it. So it's a lot of work. There's, I think it's safe, Dave, if you can out that way a little bit, so everybody that's here with us today, checking out the video of Cottage in New England. Now, what are you hoping to get out of the Sin City Paranormal Expo?
Well, there's two things that we're trying to do. For one, we want to educate people on the paranormal and everything involved with that.
Right.
And also, it's a fundraiser to try to save the cottage. So coming into this day, our first agenda is to teach and educate, because when you have an area that we have, education, people learn the history of learning just as much as they can, especially the paranormal, when it's everywhere around us. Now, I've had people ask me, it's like, well, what is the paranormal? Well, it's everything.
It's just not ghosts. It's the earth. It's everything.
Exactly.
One of the things that the Sin City Paranormal Expo wants to do is actually help out raising money for these guys to rebuild this cottage. Now, this cottage is very old. No one's allowed in it anyways because of the floors and some of the structuring inside of it. But during the Sin City Paranormal Expo, once it's all done through the planning stages, we're going to be putting a camera inside there to actually film any activity that goes on in that building during the day, during the Paranormal Expo. We will have a TV hitched up to it so we can actually watch it live outside as it's going on. Now, you went on an investigation last night.
Yes.
You want to tell us a little bit about it?
Me and a group of friends, we got together for the 1 year anniversary of the passing of our friend Greg Medros. He was a United States Marine. He did a few tours overseas, and unfortunately he passed away. And we got together for the 1 year anniversary. And my buddy Kyle's mom, she studied paranormal. She's watched all the stuff. She got the EVPs, and we sat out there and we talked to him. And at one point, the EVP actually spiked from 2 to 5 and then turned itself off. Which, as you know, they just don't turn themselves off.
Right.
And we were
now you did the flashlight test that everybody does nowadays. We turn it just almost off and just set it down.
Yeah, that fell off the table.
Fell off the table.
That fell off the table.
Now, did any of you guys record during it?
We did record audio, and you hear us joking around about something, and all of a sudden you hear "I love you" in the recording. And for those that knew Greg, it was his voice. My buddy Kyle actually dropped the tablet that was recorded on, and it brought him to tears. Because they were inseparable, and just hearing the voice, it got us. And we haven't had a chance to go through all the video, but there were points where me and Kyle were sitting by ourselves and we were talking, and then we went silent, and there was nobody around, and all of a sudden you see it spiking, like somebody was still talking. So when we finally get a chance to listen to what those messages were, we were really eager to see what Greg had to say. And we also had another piece where when we were talking, words were showing up, and some of them we were able to piece together, because we got Sanford. We're still trying to figure out where that one came from, but the rest of them were like Winter, and Greg lived 2 minutes away from Winter Island, loved it over there. Flag which not only is he a United States Marine, but me, my buddy Kyle, and his nephew Adam all got flag tattoos in his memory. Then it was ring, which was the last time that Greg and Kyle went out. He lost his Marine Corps ring and never found it. Stain, which is kind of a joke. The day of Greg's funeral, Kyle went to put on his Coast Guard uniform and they had overstarched it, so there was a starch stain on the leg. And he said Greg would definitely be giving me a lot of trouble over this. And then the final word that really got us was Adam, which is actually his nephew. So we know he was trying to talk to us, and we really want to see what we can get. Well, we've seen shadows. We took a couple pictures, and one of them you see like smoke above us, and nobody smokes. There was no fire. There's no nothing. And then another one that actually looked like somebody was standing behind us with yellow eyes, and there was a car in blackness. So we've picked up a lot of really cool things.
Do you believe that he was trying to communicate with you guys?
Yeah. It's been a rough year, and I think he's just trying to show that he's still here. And hopefully we can get some messages that can help bring closure to other family members, because I know his brother is having a really hard time with it.
Shocked a little bit with everything, with flashlight.
Oh yeah.
And everything else. So did that kind of shock you when it came to it?
Yeah, because I was expecting maybe a little something, but not as much as we got. And that really, it got me good.
And what kind of flashlight did you use? Was it a mag light?
Yeah, it was like a mag light. It was just standing there, and nobody was near the table. And right off the table. And it's not like it's one of the ones with a little base. It stands pretty well on its own. It's one of those mag light standstills. So.
So some of the stuff that you saw last night kind of made you more in tune to what's going on.
Yep.
Okay. Tell people how they can get a hold of you here at the Friends of High Rock Reservation.
You can find us on Facebook at Friends of High Rock Reservation, and just email us. We'll get back to you. If you have any questions, we're always posting things on there. We have open meetings every couple of months. We actually had one previous to today, just to discuss all the events coming up. So just check us out there.
What are some of the events you got coming up for the tower area?
November 2nd, we have a park cleanup, which we have so much property that even with 50 people coming to clean, it's still going to take several hours, because we stretch, it's got to be easily a quarter mile. And then on November 9th, we hold our Veterans Day ceremony. We hold a Veterans Day and Memorial Day every year. And it's always a good turnout. So everybody come on down.
So how did they contact you to say they want to volunteer to help out with the cleanup of the park and everything?
Just come on down. We'll post the information right there on Facebook, and you can just come on down.
You could definitely find the Friends of High Rock Reservation on Facebook. Since coming back to Lynn, this is about my second or third trip this year. This being my hometown, pan out that way, Dave, so they can see this lovely view from up here. This is where I grew up. This is my home, and I absolutely enjoy it. And when I do come down, I feel like I'm still at home. So if you want to get out here and help these fine folks here at Friends of High Rock Reservation, please talk to them. You can find them on Facebook. You could also find a link to their Facebook page on Haunted in New England on the internet, and we'll be talking to you soon. Have a great afternoon, everybody, and bye for now.